Welcome to Factual America. Independence Day is perhaps the loneliest day to be an American expat in the UK, but maybe not for the reasons you'd think. Sure, the parades, baseball games, and fireworks displays, those mainstays of the holiday, are non-existent over here. And the British summer never fails to disappoint, rendering fruitless attempts to replicate the sunny Independence days of youth, with Dad cowering in the rain under an umbrella and turning burgers on the grill, while a starving family waits patiently in the house watching TV. Instead, the day passes largely ignored, unrecognized, and unacknowledged by colleagues and friends, despite a steady diet of American movies and mass media. You might as well say October 11th, or any other random date, for all the good it would do you. Nor does the fourth merit a mention in the school curriculum here, despite a whole unit dedicated to the Vietnam War, mind you. Ken Burns, the American documentary filmmaker, recently described the American Revolution as the most important event since the birth of Christ in all of world history. But you wouldn't know that here. But that is not what's so striking this year. Never has the disparity between the US and UK been so glaringly on display as it was in the events and media coverage surrounding the 4th of July. The date, not the holiday. I was not the only one to notice, mind you. The story of the diverging paths that the two countries are on can be told as the tale of two Economist covers. If you live in the Americas and Asia, you would have seen a cartoon manifestation of Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill stalking an urban landscape, much like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from the original Ghostbusters movie. First of all, time to give credit where credit is due. Any reference to Schoolhouse Rock, and especially the I'm Just a Bill segment, is worthy of accolades and undying respect. Well done. Now, all but the bill's staunchest defenders acknowledge that it will widen America's already gaping fiscal deficit and saddle future generations with a mountain of public debt, which is already on target to hit a post-war high. That's war, as in World War II. This will crowd out private investment and raise the cost of capital. And the longer Congress waits to do anything about the deficit, the more painful the medicine will be. At least that's what the naysayers believe, and they have some reason to think so. But park those concerns for the moment. The current mood in America is exuberant, at least in the financial markets and business world, with the S&P 500 hitting another record high, and baby boomers sitting on a treasure chest of property portfolios and 401ks. Even The Economist had to acknowledge in this week's edition that the dynamic U.S. economy is set to largely shrug off the impact of higher tariffs and policy uncertainty, at least for the next couple of years. And while chaotic U.S. trade policy, the defunding of scientific research, and other rule of law measures may possibly lead to the ruination of America in the long term, the frenetic pace of the Trump administration points to something that even Mr. Trump's haters have to admit, if not admire. He gets things done, and largely delivers on all but the most outlandish of his rhetoric. Nothing could be further from the case here in the UK, as shown by the other Economist cover. If people remember the July 4th date for any reason in the future, it will be to annually mark the election in 2024 of possibly the weakest and most feeble UK administration in modern history. The Labour Party, led by Sir Keir Starmer, did actually play on the independence theme last year, on its way to winning a landslide. Sir Keir also promised that a Labour government would be a model of centrist pragmatism for the world and restore trust in government, while cutting hospital waiting lists, tackling a housing crisis, and stopping migrant boats from landing on these shores. So far, his government has failed miserably. That was on display in incredible scenes last week when, despite a massive majority in the parliament, unlike the Republicans in the U.S. Congress, Sir Keir was humiliated by a rebellion within his own party. Labour's signature welfare reform is now in tatters, as are the public finances. Investors have taken note. Sir Keir was at pains to defend his record in an address to Parliament, even as his Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, responsible for the nation's economic and financial health, was seen weeping behind him. While the reasons for her tears were subject to much debate, it was certainly not a good look for the government. Imagine Scott Bessent, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, being seen crying at a State of the Union address. And how has Mrs. Reeves since responded? Well, she's leaning in by intimating that she will raise taxes. It is no wonder that the mood is horrible here in the UK. The country is stuck in its longest period of economic stagnation since the Great Depression. We got word today that it's shrunk for the second month in a row. The public finances are a mess. Every return trip home from abroad is a further reminder of how things don't seem to work anymore. The trains don't run on time, if and when they are not canceled. Public works projects take ages and often seem to be left unfinished. And that trust in the government that Labour sought to restore, it is now at a 40-year low. If an election were held today in the UK, Labour would lose out to the upstart Populist Reform Party, which did not even exist until a few years ago and has only 4 members in Parliament. It is not just Labour that is in trouble. The Conservatives, that venerable party of Disraeli, Churchill, and Thatcher, would limp into 4th place, behind even the Liberal Democrats, a party that has been pretending to be a viable political force for the better part of a century. The reality is that no election is likely to be held for another 4 years, with the drift and decline set to continue. In the ultimate of backhanded compliments, again I turn to The Economist, which this week notes, without tongue firmly planted in cheek, that Britain is a buying opportunity for global investors, a land of cheap assets and cheap labor. The article notes that the cost of an IT professional employed by a U.S. bank in Glasgow, Scotland, is now closer to that in India than Texas. That last factoid certainly rings true to my ears. Let's look at an admittedly crude but well-established metric: the economic output of a country in U.S. dollars divided by the number of people, otherwise known as GDP per capita. As recently as just 20 years ago when my daughter was born, GDP per capita in the US and UK was essentially the same, and it felt that way, living here but making frequent trips back home. According to the latest figures, however, the average American is 60% better off than their British cousins, and once again, it feels like it. The British press are regularly full of stories of how Poland will soon be richer than the UK, while based on some convoluted and exaggerated measures of economic well-being, it is not far from the truth. Which takes us back to 2 figures thus far hinted at, but so far unmentioned: Nigel Farage and Elon Musk. Both men were with Mr. Trump at Mar-a-Lago on election night in 2024. Both are wealthy, although Mr. Farage's worth cannot hold a candle to that of the world's richest man, Mr. Musk. Both have been close friends with Mr. Trump, and now both have started political parties. Mr. Farage is the Eurosceptic populist firebrand who has largely modeled his political career, at least recently, on Mr. Trump. If the aforementioned polls hold for the next 4 years, then he could very well be the next British Prime Minister. Lost somewhat in all the news of the tumultuous week that has now been further overshadowed by another flurry of tariff announcements from the White House, Mr. Musk announced that he is launching the America Party after a July 4th poll, there's that date again, on his X social media platform. He faces much more of an uphill battle if he is truly serious to shake up the political scene. But as long as both the Democrats and Republicans continue spending money like drunken sailors, his chances of shaking up the political system go up by the day. Would you bet against the guy who has built Tesla into a global brand, figured out ways of reusing space rockets, and helped elect Mr. Trump in 2024? All I can say is watch this space. I hope you liked this episode. If you did, please like it and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And remember to ring the bell to be notified of future episodes. For our long-time listeners and viewers, you'll have noticed this episode marks a departure from our usual format. Don't worry, we'll continue interviewing documentary filmmakers and their subjects, as we have these past 5 years. But if that experience has taught us anything, and believe me, we're very thankful to our loyal listeners and the many incredible guests we've had on the show, is that viewing America through the lens of documentary filmmaking comes with its own distortions. Still way better than mainstream media, but distorted nonetheless. With that in mind, we are excited to announce that we will be launching some new formats to include alternative voices who can offer unique insights into what is happening in the U.S. in 2025. We hope Factual America will help American and foreign audiences alike understand what are the driving forces behind a resurgent and vibrant America. I will also start offering my own personal observations as an American expat living in the UK, and this episode is the first attempt. At the risk of flattering myself extremely so, we are modeling these musings and observations about America on the iconic BBC radio program Letter from America, hosted by the legendary Alistair Cook. I will probably say more about Mr. Cook in future episodes, but suffice to say that he was an early hero to a precocious boy growing up in South Texas. Like Mr. Cook's earlier episodes, we don't have a title yet for this segment. Please feel free to suggest one. Letter to America comes off a bit condescending, which is definitely something we are trying to avoid. We also don't want to confuse it with Osama bin Laden's infamous letter to the American people. And there's already a good Substack out there called Letters from an American. Letter from Britain? I'm not sure. Anyway, we're still working on it.
Thanks for listening to Factual America. Please subscribe and like us and share us with friends and family. Find us on YouTube, social media, and factualamerica.com. This is Matthew Sherwood, signing off.